Remember, like, was there a time you specifically sat down with your son and explained to him what you went through? Like, was that a conversation that you had?
No,
Okay.
no, it was not a conversation.
Okay.
My son spent a lot of time with my parents. When my family came to the United States, we went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
because my uncle, who had emigrated before, before the war even from Germany, had settled in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, it being the logical place for somebody who was also in the scrap metal business.
Hmm.
There were still steel mills at that time. And so he's heard a lot, from my parents and from a lot of my parents' friends. Um, I don't think I ever sat down with him. And to be quite honest, it wasn't until I saw not an advertisement, but an article in the New York Times about a film, a documentary film, which was going to be shown at Temple Israel in Great Neck, about a town where, quote, 5,000 Jewish children were saved by 2,500 uh, Protestants, a town called Le Chambon-sur-Lignon. It was not until that moment that I realized that I had been part of something
Hmm.
really extraordinary. And there things had happened to me before I was taken into hiding at Le Chambon, which were extremely, extremely upsetting, and to the point where I had really repressed them.
Hmm.
And I had, what I said to my husband, with whom I had never shared anything either,
Hmm.
I said to him, this is a film about a town where I spent some time during the war.
Wow.
Uh, and it wasn't until I really saw the film that this light went on. As a matter of fact, when we were sitting watching this film, Pierre Sauvage, who made this film, interviews a woman called Madeleine Dreyfus. And I didn't recognize the name because I was 11 years old,
Yeah, I'm
my
sure.
sister was 9, when this particular person took us from Lyon to Le Chambon. I
Wow.
really hadn't paid any attention to her name. Even if I had, I would not have recognized her because this was 40 years later, 49 years later. And she, you know, Pierre Sauvage said to her, I understand you kept a notebook, Madeleine.
Hmm.
And she said, yes, to my shame. And to my shame, because if she had ever been picked up with that notebook, in which she had the names of the children she was taking from two major French cities to Le Chambon, and their date of birth and their home address,
Hmm.
as well as the farmers where she was taking them, and little notes about them, little, so and so needs an extra sweater, so and so needs a this or that. If she had ever been picked up with this, all these people would have been in big trouble. But as she flashes this on the screen, I see my sister's name in this little notebook, date of birth. And she turns the page and I see my name and my date of birth and my home address, as well as the name of the farmers where I was going. And you cannot believe the scream that I let go. I was completely out of control.
Wow.
Because
That's
all of a sudden, 49 years later, something that I had really buried,
hmm.
and I have to go back to really explain why so much of it was buried,
Yeah.
um, suddenly became a reality.
Hmm.
And they stopped the film actually because they couldn't figure out what had happened. It 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 was I can't remember a moment like it in my entire life.